You've been stuck behind one. A truck crawling down the highway at half the speed limit, hauling something enormous, a giant yellow banner reading "Oversized Load," and one or two cars with flashing amber lights riding ahead of it and behind it. And as you waited for your chance to pass, you probably figured those cars were just there to slow everyone down. A rolling warning sign, a bit of an inconvenience. Here's what almost nobody realizes: those cars are not decoration. Right at that moment, one of them is physically measuring whether that load will clear every bridge, every overpass, and every power line on the road ahead, in real time, before the load gets there. And the entire trip you're stuck behind was solved like a puzzle, often months before the truck ever turned a wheel. The thing keeping that load on the road isn't the driver, and it isn't the truck. It's something called the route survey. And by the end of this, you'll understand what that long pole sticking off the lead car really does, why some loads need a police escort, and how a load just 2 inches too tall once dropped an entire interstate bridge into a river. So, let's get into it. What are those cars actually doing up there? Why does one load need a car in front and another car behind? What is that tall pole on the lead vehicle for? Why do these loads crawl, often at night, sometimes with the police? Why does moving one take months of planning? And how can something the size of a house, or longer than a blue whale, legally roll down the same road as your car? Here's what everyone gets wrong. We assume the hard part is the truck, some monster rig, strong enough to haul something that huge. But the truck is the easy part. The hard part was never the load. It's the road. Think about everything standing between point A and point B. Every overpass the load has to fit under. Every power line and traffic signal strung across the street. Every bridge that has to hold the weight. Every turn too tight for something 100 feet long. Each one of those is a potential wall the load simply cannot pass. So before anything moves, someone has to solve the entire path. They have to find a route where this specific load fits under, over, around, and through every single obstacle, for hundreds of miles. That is the route survey, and it is the real thing you're paying for. By the time the truck rolls, it's just executing a plan that was finished weeks ago. And it all starts with one number. Anything wider than 8.5 feet, the width of a standard highway lane, is officially an oversized load, and it cannot legally move without a permit. So, how does it actually work? Once a load passes that 8.5-foot line, or gets taller than about 14 feet, or longer than 90 to 100 feet, the carrier has to get a permit from every single state the load will travel through, and that state tells them exactly what escorts they need. Those escorts are the cars you've been stuck behind, and each one has a job. The lead car drives well ahead of the load, scouting for trouble, watching for oncoming traffic on narrow roads, calling out tight turns and low obstacles to the driver over the radio, and when it has to, physically stopping traffic to get the load through. The rear car protects the back, warning everyone coming up behind. They carry banners 5 feet wide, amber lights you can see from 500 feet away, and a constant radio link to the driver. And then there's the pole. On a tall load, the lead car carries a height pole mounted right on its front bumper, set 3 to 6 inches taller than the load itself to account for the load swaying in the wind. As the lead car drives the route, that pole taps every overpass and every wire before the load ever reaches it. If the pole strikes something, the driver behind has seconds to stop. It is a mechanical early warning system, and it is, essentially, a very expensive stick. The same clearance problem you'd never think about becomes a matter of inches. The bigger the load, the more the system escalates. Get wider than about 14 feet, and you need 2 escorts, one front and one rear. Wider than 16 feet, or heavier than 200,000 pounds, and now you need actual police escorts. The truly enormous ones become super loads, requiring advance notice to the state and a completely custom route. And here's a detail that ties back to something we covered before. The heaviest loads ride on trailers with dozens of axles, spreading their weight exactly the way the bridge formula demands, because a superload that didn't spread its weight would crush the very bridges it's trying to cross. On top of all that, these loads can usually only move in daylight, never on Sundays or holidays in many states, and never during rush hour, which is why you so often see them crawling through cities at night. And the rules change at every state line, so a cross-country move means swapping out escort cars and rechecking certifications state by state the entire way. The whole system grew out of a simple collision between physics and ambition. That 8.5-foot limit isn't arbitrary. It comes straight from the 12-foot highway lane. A load wider than that literally cannot stay inside its own lane. But the world kept needing things that couldn't be built where they're used. A power plant needs a single transformer too big to assemble on site. A wind farm needs blades that have to arrive in one piece. Refineries, bridges, factories, all of them need giant components made in one place and used in another. So every state wrote its own web of permit and escort rules to let these giants pass without destroying the roads or killing anyone. The result is a patchwork with no national standard. The width that triggers your first pilot car ranges from about 11 feet in Arizona to over 16 feet in Montana. 12 states require escort drivers to be specially certified, and some won't even honor another state's certification. Every major move is a custom negotiation with each state it touches. And once you understand that, you start seeing these giants everywhere. The loads too big to exist in pieces. Electrical transformers, among the heaviest things ever put on a road, riding on trailers with row after row of axles. Wind turbine blades, among the longest loads in the world. So long they need special extendable trailers, some with a hinge that can tilt the entire blade into the air to swing it over an obstacle. Refinery vessels, bridge girders, prefabricated buildings, and yes, entire houses, sawed in half and rolled down the interstate as two slow-moving halves. You've read that wide load banner 100 times without thinking about it. You've waited at those flashing amber lights. Those low clearance signs bolted over every bridge and tunnel exist for exactly these loads. And it's the same truck you've watched this whole time, the one that fights gravity down a mountain, brakes with its own engine, and gets weighed axle by axle, now carrying something so large that the road itself has to be measured before it can receive it. The load is never the impressive part. The fact that someone found a path for it is. And the reason all of this caution exists, the permits, the escorts, the pole, became horrifyingly clear on the evening of May 23, 2013. A truck hauling an oversized load was crossing the Interstate 5 bridge over the Skagit River in Washington state. The load was just 2 inches too tall for the lane it was in. The driver believed it stood 15 feet 9 inches. It was actually 15 feet 11 inches. It clipped the overhead steel trusses, and a 160-foot span of the bridge dropped straight into the river, taking 2 cars down with it. By something close to a miracle, everyone survived. But here is the chilling part. That truck had a permit. It had a pilot car. It had a height pole. And every single safeguard failed at once. The pilot driver was on her phone and never radioed a warning. The truck was following too closely to stop in time anyway, and the state had automatically issued the permit online from a database that only stored each bridge's tallest clearance, never checking that this load would actually fit in that lane. Overheight loads strike bridges an average of about 4 times every day in this country, and they are almost always caught in time. That was the day the system did not catch it. So the entire industry has been quietly rebuilding around that failure. States pushed to fix their bridge databases to store the real, lowest clearance of every lane, not just the tallest. Engineers developed automatic pole strikes that instantly radio the driver the moment the pole touches something, instead of trusting a human to notice. Routing has gone digital, with software that checks a load's exact height, width, and weight against every bridge, wire, and turn on the path before a permit is ever issued. And the heaviest moves increasingly ride on self-propelled modular transporters, Computer-controlled platforms with dozens of independently steered wheels that can carry millions of pounds, turn in place, and even walk sideways. The whole direction is to pull the human guesswork out of a job where 2 inches can put a bridge in a river. So the next time you're stuck behind one, you'll see it completely differently. Those flashing cars aren't there to slow you down. They are the visible edge of something invisible. A route survey that found a path for something that was never supposed to fit, a pole feeling its way under every bridge ahead, and a plan months in the making, executing in real time at 25 miles an hour. The thing on the trailer is just cargo. The real achievement is the path. And that pickup truck with the flashing lights, the one you've been waiting to pass, isn't in your way at all. It's the only reason the giant in front of it is allowed to be on the road. And those shredded black strips of tire you're always swerving around on the highway, the ones truckers call road gators. They're not just blown-out retreads, and the real reason they end up there will change how you look at every truck tire on the road.